time no see, cadavers. This is Josh, and I'm here with a new episode from a throwback series I started back when this channel was just a baby. I know a lot of you have been asking for more of the hard truth, and I do plan on possibly doing a recap episode since there's been new developments in the Alexa Sharkey case, as well as Corey's case. But I am actually planning a new series called Puppet Horror, where I will have special guest speakers and of course my puppet Emilio weighing in as well. If you've yet to meet Emilio, don't worry, you will soon. Since it's spooky season, I figured why not tell a true story that I myself actually experienced earlier this year. So, without further ado, I've never experienced lucid dreaming. I've had a few bouts of sleep paralysis here and there, but I've always assumed that those claiming to have experienced lucid dreaming to be embellishing or outright lying for attention. I realize that sleep paralysis alone is enough to trigger the imagination, as there's truly nothing like it. You wake up, your mind is aware. However, your body seems to have not gotten the message. Our brain sends a chemical message throughout our body to keep from harming ourselves in our sleep. But if the brain fails to stop delivering that chemical message once you are awake, you will feel a tight chest, making it hard to breathe. Your body will tingle, and you won't be able to move your extremities, let alone your fingers. It's terrifying, for all who know the feeling, but if you can tell yourself you are asleep, that can help you realize the situation. I tend to count, that usually helps, but it doesn't change the fact that it freaks me out every time it happens. It is rumored that the entity known as the incubus was invented due to sleep paralysis. The idea of an unseen demonic presence holding you down could easily be blamed for an irresponsible sleeping mind. If you are not familiar with the incubus, well, not that incubus. An incubus is a male demon who lies upon sleeping women in order to engage in intimate activity with them. This demon also has a female counterpart known as the succubus. Think Megan Fox, Jennifer's Body. Sleep paralysis victims have claimed a presence sitting on their chest and have pinned the blame on many supernatural beings such as the incubus, witches, to other various demons. The truth is, the lack of air you may feel while experiencing sleep paralysis is actually due to your body only requiring a small amount of oxygen while you are asleep. This is because our physiological features are void during deep sleep. But, demon or not, it is indeed a terrifying experience to wake unable to catch your breath, let alone move. The first time it happened to me, I definitely thought something demonic had gotten a hold of me. Some claim that their sleep paralysis was influenced by devils regardless. A good example of this is in episode 4 of Frayed, so if you'd like to hear a good throwback possession story that started with bouts of sleep paralysis, then go check that out. I'll make sure to link it above. But I will tell you that I myself have experienced something extremely unusual recently. Before I jump into that, I should mention lucid dreaming once more. Have you ever been aware of a dream? Perhaps you have woken up from a nightmare and didn't like how it ended, so you fall back asleep, and now that you're aware of the dream, you can possibly change its outcome to make it more in your favor. Well, that is lucid dreaming. And although sleep paralysis is frightening, to a lucid dreamer, the moment of immobility is their holy grail. This is due to the claim that while paralyzed, you can actually have an out-of-body experience. This is known as astral projection. Perhaps you've heard of it. And for those who haven't, astral projection is the idea that the soul or conscious mind, for a short while, can travel outside of the body. I've heard of this concept, but always thought it was, well, frankly, bullshit. That is, until I did it. Those who know me realize I am not one to make up stories, hence why most of my episodes feature stories provided by others. But why would an English major and aspiring writer seek out stories from others? Because these stories are true, and I do not wish to fabricate any experience. If I have experienced something odd, then I will share it, like I did with my first episode, or the one where I talked about the glow in the Nevada desert in episode 3. The reason I bring all of this up is because if I wanted to write fiction, I'd finish my book. But enough ranting. Let me tell you how it all started. It was almost serendipitous. I was watching YouTube channels much like my own when I stumbled upon the concept of lucid dreaming. While listening to what others have said, I just couldn't wrap my mind around the concept. Leaving your body? Come on. Sleep paralysis is creepy enough, and I have read that some people have hallucinated while in that state, so it just had to be an exaggerated experience, so I thought. I should add that sleep paralysis doesn't have an exact trigger. Experts claim that it can occur in certain genetics, extreme stress, or in sleep deprivation. Luckily for me, while watching these videos, I was on my 36th hour of no sleep. A lack of sleep is pretty common for us YouTubers, you know. Anyhow, I pretty much knew right then and there that I was going to experience the dreaded sleep paralysis once I did fall asleep. In fact, any time I've experienced it has been while I was running on fumes and had been up for days at a time. So although I've only experienced sleep paralysis a handful of times, I knew it was coming. And these stories of lucid dreaming triggered a preparation within me so that when I finally did lie in bed to fall asleep, I was ready. I was going to attempt astral projection. So I eventually did fall asleep, and I don't know how long I was out. I'd say maybe 5 hours or so, but at some point it happened. I started hearing things around my house, and slowly my mind began to wake. I opened my eyes and felt the old familiar tingle all over, like when you fall asleep on an arm. I tried to move. Nothing. If I could have smiled, I would have. Finally, I could put all this claim of leaving the body to shame. All I had to do was close my eyes, and I'd either be flying around the room or proving the lucid dreamers as liars, frauds. Either way was a win. I could make content out of either narrative. Besides, sleep paralysis is creepy enough. I closed my eyes and I was in dreamland. It's so strange. The only thing I can do is attempt a sketch of the room for you, so that way you can fully understand every detail. As soon as my eyes closed, I was standing in my room. I was not out of my body, though. This was a dream. I know what a dream feels like. I thought it was odd because I know what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how to do it. I wanted to fly around like I've heard others do so many times. Behind my bed was a doorway that I had never seen before. It had never been there, and that did not match the layout of my home at all. The doorway hung with no door. Drawn to the dark, I walked into the closet-like opening and stood just beyond its threshold. In this little room was a rack of clothes to the right of me. In front of me was a wall of wood paneling. My sister's childhood room had wood paneling much like this, but to the left of me was a staircase. The staircase was leading down to black. It looked like steps to nothingness. I stood looking down thinking, I want out of this dream. This isn't what I wanted. Why am I not flying around the room? Then, all of a sudden, I felt a dreadful feeling. It was a feeling of being watched. Something in the corner of the closet behind me, directly beside the rack of clothing. Something stood. I slowly began to turn to look. I don't know how to really convey this next part because I didn't really see it, but I could feel the expression on its face, the face of the shadow behind me. It was almost like you asked for it, like a devilish grin without seeing it. And as soon as my eyes met the corner, the shadow grabbed me and flung me through the wall and up and out of my body. And there I was. I was awake and hanging over top my body. For just a moment, I was in awe. I could finally fly around the house and experience everything everyone had talked about. It's true, I thought. This is real. Astral projection is real. But then, reality hit. Who was that? What was that? Panicking, I slowly began to kick in the air, hoping to sink back into my body. Move your fingers, count, anything, God help me. I was struggling. I wanted to get back into my body so bad and just wake. I began to pray, and I'm not even a religious person, but I just needed something, someone to save me. And I slowly started to sink back towards my body, slowly, lower and lower. After I was reunited, I reopened my eyes and went to stand. Fuck. I was still paralyzed. I could see the room, but again, I felt that tight chest, that tingling. I couldn't move. Still afraid that something could get me in this state, I began to count, like I used to. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I could feel, slowly, my hand get its feeling back. It worked its way up my arm until I was able to stand on my own 2 feet again. Finally, on my feet, standing, looking down over my bed, I tried to make sense of what had happened. Doing research, I discovered that the shadow man I had seen is another common being many lucid dreamers have claimed to see. Digging deeper, almost all lucid dreamers have claimed to see him. He said nothing to me, but I felt him, and I saw him. Whatever it was, it gave me the push to leave my body, and I do not like the idea of that. Did I have an out-of-body experience? Yes, at least I think so. But it was not on my terms. No, see, there was a presence there, watching over the experience. What was he? She? It? Why do others see this figure when in this state? And also, what was down that dark staircase? Ever since that experience, I felt a little off. I don't know if I did a good job explaining myself. In many ways, that whole ordeal was just unexplainable. I feel like there are a few points I need to touch on before we conclude as well. I had heard of shadow people before, but not the kind you see in lucid dreams, and even though I love the topic of the paranormal, admittedly, I am not a believer. Even now I try to make sense of my experience even though I cannot. The only physical attribute I recall is a large grin in a void of black, like the reminiscence of the Cheshire Cat just before it fades completely, leaving only a smile behind. I saw no Hat Man. I saw only one figure, if you call a grin in the dark a figure. When the darkness grabbed, though, the jerk was equivalent to whiplash on a roller coaster. I have never done this again. Even since the experience, I have had bouts of sleep paralysis. I just wouldn't dare lucid dream anymore. I just don't want there to be any chance of reuniting with the shadow from before. It didn't feel like it had good intentions. In fact, what it felt like was a hunt. Like this thing said, "Here, have a head start." Perhaps it was a warning that I was no longer in my plane of existence. I really don't know. Was that the upside down? Did I enter another dimension? Are these shadow people there to warn us or keep us from meddling in their domain? I can't help but think that while floating around, we are stuck in some kind of middle ground between life and death. Perhaps it's the realm of lost souls, the same one that they get trapped in. The only thing I know is that if my body took on the form of a normal soul while floating, that thing with the smile was not like me. I felt like a predator, and I its prey. I wish I could give my mind to all of you listening. I wish I could show you how real this all was. But you can find out for yourself. I'd just advise against it. Whatever that thing was that jerked and twisted my body through the wall and out of my shell with such force did not have good intentions. I know that. I felt it. And I personally have no plans to revisit any of that. There's a word I love to use, and that word is blithe, which means without thought or regard. Carelessly irresponsible, even. I bring up this word to give you a piece of advice in case you decide to take my account with a grain of salt. Don't go blithely into the dark, as you may not find your way out. I truly hope you've enjoyed this episode of Frayed. It's been such a long time and it feels so good to be back. I want to thank all of my supporters, all of you listening, all who believe in me. And if you like this kind of content, be sure to tell the like button that you ordered its Halloween costume for it. Just make sure you order it 2 sizes too small. And come Halloween, make sure you give the subscribe button pencils instead of candy. On a serious note, I would like you to leave a comment at the very least if you have any experience whatsoever with shadow people or the Hat Man. Or even lucid dreaming. I would love to know your thoughts and opinions on the matter. I look forward to hearing from you all. So until then, be good to another and stay safe.